misdemeanors. The other thing we're going to talk about today were DUIs. DUIs are very serious. Having been a police officer and having witnessed some of the tragedies that go along with alcohol-involved accidents, it is a serious offense. But it's something that happens to a lot of people, and it's across spectrums as far as who gets a DUI. Our job as your attorneys are not to judge our clients for getting a DUI. Our job is to help you through the process, get you the best possible sentence, and make sure that we get your driving privileges reinstated and get you back into a compliance with the DMV and the court. With that, if you go to court without an attorney on a DUI charge, you could face imprisonment, you could face being on long-term probation, and you could lose your license for a substantial amount of time. So whether you decide to use our office on a matter such as that, it's really important that you use an attorney with you on that type of a charge. DUIs, as far as the outcome, it varies a little bit between which jurisdiction you're in when the DUI occurs. Locally, we have North Las Vegas, we've got City of Las Vegas, we have our Justice Courts for the Township of Las Vegas, Justice Court for Henderson. We also have the City of Henderson. There's Laughlin. So there's several different courts that adjudicate traffic matters, including a DUI. The different courts and the different prosecutor's office have much different plea negotiations standards with regard to how that DUI is handled. For the most part, if it's your first offense in 6 years, it will be negotiated so that you won't have to spend any time in jail other than the credit time served for your initial arrest, and the rest of the terms all kind of get worked out. If it is your second offense in 6 years, you are going to have to be incarcerated for a short amount of time. Again, it can be negotiated, and it's something that we work on with the prosecutor to make sure that we minimize that as much as possible. There are some other things that you can do to try to reduce your fine, your sentence, and sometimes we even can plea out the DUI as a reckless operation or some other lesser included offense so that your record is clearer. The biggest question I get, and having been a police officer and having administered sobriety tests to individuals that I stopped, the biggest question is, how do you beat the test? Well, there's not really a way to beat the test, and I certainly wouldn't be in a position of protecting the public by encouraging people to try to beat the test for DUI. The best way to beat the test is to not drink alcohol and then drive a car. That's how you beat the test, because you're not going to be under the influence. Besides that, when an officer pulls you over, driving is a privilege. It's not a right. So in signing up for a driver's license, we've all agreed that when an officer asks us to submit to a chemical test, whether it's blood, breath, or urine, that we will submit to it. If we don't, we automatically lose our driving privileges. That's the administrative suspension of your privileges that occurs. So ultimately, if you get stopped and you have been drinking, then the officer has a right to ask you to submit to the test. If you don't, you're going to get an administrative suspension of your license. So, it's always best to cooperate with the officer, treat them with respect. Ultimately, if you don't submit to the test, you just have to understand that administrative suspension is a consequence. And just because you don't submit to the test doesn't mean that they won't charge you with a DUI and or be able to articulate to the court what they observed as far as your behavior. A lot of the officers have mobile video recorders in their cars. So even though you may not want to submit to the test, that video is going to capture your behavior. And even if their camera isn't capturing you, their audio microphone will probably capture your speech. So if you have slurred speech and are just, presenting yourself in a manner that would lead the average ordinary person to assume you were intoxicated, they still can charge you with a DUI and present that evidence. So that's kind of a summation of a DUI. It is very important that you get counsel to assist you. It is not a easy road to navigate. It's very intimidating, and there are serious consequences with regard to charges such as that. Okay, so we're going to take a couple of questions. Let's see. Okay, why should I hire an attorney to handle a traffic ticket if I can just go to court myself? Well, you do have the right to go to court yourself. The question becomes, do you want the hassle of going to court? And there's no guarantee that the judge will give you a negotiated sentence or a plea. Typically, when an attorney shows up, the judge is automatically going to give that negotiated plea. That's the standard. That's how it works. So the two benefits you get from using an attorney for a traffic ticket are, one, you don't have the hassle of going to court, and two, you know that you're going to get the best negotiated rate and reduction of the fine and reduction of the actual charge against you by using an attorney. So for a minimal charge, it's worth it, especially in the savings that you'll get with regard to your insurance premium. And if you don't believe me, call your insurance agent and ask them. Say, hey, if I got a 4-point increase on my DMV report, how much would my premium go up? Now, be careful about asking them that, because they might assume that you've had the citation. But if you want to check it out and make sure that it's true that your insurance would go up from having a traffic ticket, call them and ask them. Okay. Next question. Let's see. Oh, okay. Can you be arrested for a DUI if you have been smoking pot? Yes. Using any type of an intoxicating substance, even prescription medications that are scheduled as narcotics. If you are under the influence of alcohol and or drugs, you can be charged with driving under the influence, and again, it goes to that blood, breath, or urine. So even though the predominance of chemical tests are breath through a breathalyzer, they do have the ability to take your blood or urine, in which case the pharmaceutical drugs and any marijuana, any other type of recreational drug will show up in a tox screen. And simply having those substances in your system will be the benchmark for a DUI. Okay. Okay, I have another question. Do we handle public drunkenness tickets, also known as disorderly conduct while intoxicated? Yes, we do handle minor misdemeanor citations. Intoxication in public is something that a lot of our visitors and tourists unfortunately find themselves in out on the strip of Las Vegas Boulevard. It's usually the ones that are like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon that have crossed paths with one of our fine metro officers in a bike uniform and have sorely irritated them and got a public intoxication ticket. So yes, we can handle those. We can enter a plea for you, and typically there's going to be a fine and probation. Usually, if you have been incarcerated because you were a danger to yourself or others, in conjunction with that, you're going to get credit time served for that. Okay, wow, everybody's asking questions. All right, next question. Are open containers illegal in automobiles? Yes, they are. While Nevada permits you to have an open alcoholic beverage out in a public thoroughfare, which is unique. Most states don't permit that, but we're Las Vegas and we do. You cannot have an open container of alcohol inside of a motor vehicle. The challenge for the officer is always to prove whose it is. If you are driving the vehicle and you're by yourself and there's an open container of alcohol, well, it's yours. So in addition to that open container charge, you're probably going to get a DUI as well. So if there's a lot of people in the vehicle, and let's say someone's in the way back and there's an open container there, then the person or persons in close proximity and control are going to be issued that ticket. And we do handle those.